Lisa Lockwood, as a former police officer, if you're sitting there, you're pretty happy with that testimony, aren't you?
Ah, oh my gosh. I mean, he admitted right away, and this is 2 months prior to her actually dying, that he was solicited to murder her. This was his friend, this was a customer. He had a meeting, it was proven by the text, the meeting took place, but the actual solicitation prior to that, that within itself is definitely going to turn the heads of the jurors right now.
And Lisa Lockwood, Adam makes an interesting point, and let me just tell you that Adam just had the first not guilty verdict in Manhattan since the pandemic began with a live juror, not on Zoom, but like in a real courtroom, okay? So he's really good about that. But if you are now the state and you are the police officer advising the prosecution, what do you say to counter that for any type of follow-up witnesses or argument?
I think the key that really turned for me was the moment that he said, "You're at another casino, you're gambling with somebody else, you owe us money, I'm going to take care of you." Now he's getting threats saying, "I'm going to take care of you and get even, and I'm going to show up." And he was so angered just a couple of days later in his desperation of paying that debt and getting rid of his wife, so to speak. I think that would have been really important to follow up with, because it was literally several days after that fact when he realized his friend of 7 or 8 years, who knows him, who knows his history, who knows his gambling debts, has now betrayed him. He was desperate and needed that money.
The self-strangulation with the sheet. Lisa Lockwood, that's kind of an interesting concept here. Self-strangulation with the sheet. But of course, Jim Timbers also said that indeed, hey, he hated her. He told me he hated her. Hatred and the will to get the money from a life insurance policy, according, we just heard that the wife never knew, Maureen never knew was on her life.
Yeah, so that makes you think, how long was this intended? How much hate did he have for her? What was the period of time? When was the insurance policy put into effect? And why was it secret? So those are important things with the investigation. And also, too, when somebody generally kills themselves, if it was impulsive, potentially it would have been drugs. It would have been an overdose. To actually choke yourself out on a bedpost, that's peculiar in itself. So I think the investigation showed that the likelihood of her doing that is probably very low.
And when we come back, there'll be more on the William Argie trial. There's a new witness on the stand, and we will bring it to you only here at the Law and Crime Network. Stay with us. And Lisa Lockwood, when there is an investigation going on, there's a reason to keep things secret. What's the difference between having an active investigation and a public trial where the public is to judge, along with the jury, whether or not the defendant gets a fair trial and whether or not the evidence was there to support either a conviction or not guilty?
Yes, I mean, there's only so much that you want to expose to the public when it is ongoing. Police officers and the protocol is that you keep those cards close to your chest so that you don't taint the investigation in any way. And I do have to say, when the crime scene analyst was actually on the stand and she used her laser and kept pointing up to the screen that we weren't able to see, the camera was able to see her actually flipping her pages in her version of what was there. And we were able to see a little bit of those crime scene photos. And I said, why are we not seeing this?
Yeah.
So,
yeah, no, it's definitely a First Amendment, a public right to know issue. And while the courts have an obligation to either first allow cameras in the courtroom or not under the rules, once they find the cameras in the courtroom, then they've decided that this is a public courtroom. And certainly when those documents become evidence, they become open to the public and they have to eventually be released anyhow, as we see some courts do if there's like a very gruesome picture, for instance, of a child or something like that. Lisa Lockwood, let's talk about this. And I love this whole Dunkin' Donuts issue because every morning I get up on my DoorDash and order Dunkin' Donuts, and it's me, it's the blueberry ice cream lattes, and it's, an egg wrap just with no cheese, no nothing, just plain, protein egg. But here, the fact that they're eliciting not just the purchase on the credit card, but what was bought, the one egg, bacon, and cheese, the one hash brown, and one medium cup of coffee, would indicate that even though the victim's phone was traveling with William Argie, she was not because of the order, correct?
That's correct. So, yeah, it was an order for him, for one person. And then the further tracking was able to show that he was at a hotel across from a casino. And this is common practice for him. And we also learned that she had already been deceased. His wife had already been deceased. So what was he doing? Why was he in those locations? Was this common for him at that time of the day? He was not aware that she killed herself at that point. So the timeline is very important in all of it.
And I said the word murder, but of course we don't know whether he murdered her. That's for the jury to decide on what the state is contending. He maintains his innocence. Lisa Lockwood, my crime analyst, former SWAT, former police officer, talk to me a little bit about domestic violence here and how this father could kill this mother knowing his kids were sleeping down the hall and then just send him away on a school bus to school, I think, so he could get away.
Yes, without a doubt, and that's where I'm leaning. And 9 and 6 years old children know a lot. They've been in the house, they've witnessed fights, arguments. We have a sister-in-law who said that he was berating her in the basement for over an hour and a half at one point. So you better believe those children have seen quite a bit over the years regarding the dysfunction in the relationship. So it's coming out slowly, and I think the person who interviewed those children probably know a lot more regarding the one daughter who went into the bedroom and then how that child showed up in school. Was she distraught? Was she concerned about her mother? Did she discuss it with anybody else that her mother was in bed sick and not moving?
Well, I want to thank both of you, my guests. You're always fabulous to be on, terrific, giving us the best scoop. Adam Conta and Lisa Lockwood, mother of Pinky the dog, I will just throw it in there. Sometimes we just release the tensions we see on all this horrible crime and remember to hug your families well.